Go, go, go! Oh, Yasuo, get over here. How about Tristan? Wrecked. Ow. I said get the fuck over here! Get wrecked!
What is up everybody? Zami here, and today I want to tell you about my newest invention, which you may have noticed already.
Tank Tryndamere!
The idea of Tank Tryndamere is based off it can be a very powerful meat wall for your team and still deal pretty much damage.
But how can Tank Tryndamere deal damage if he's a tank?
The reason for that I will explain later. In teamfights, enemy team has usually two choices. A. They ignore you and mainly focus your team's backline by risking their own backline to you and the other assassins. B. They secure their backline by focusing you, but they risk that way their whole team for your team's attack. Unless, of course, you're left alone, because then you're dead. As the name Tank Tryndamere itself tells, it's very sturdy and still a threat to enemies regardless of the tankiness, if not noticed in time, and even if they do, it won't be easy when both teams are ready to fight. Tank Tryndamere's playstyle at the early game is a passive pusher, but when a teamfight is approaching, he becomes the meat wall of the team and starts attacking enemy team's backline. Then enemy's way of fighting changes and they have to choose one of the choices I mentioned earlier and still have problems. Favorable matchup in teamfights is where enemies don't pretty much have CC or mobility at all. In lane, it is more enjoyable if opponent doesn't have the power, kiting, stuns or slows. Impossible these situations aren't of course, but a lot tougher. Sometimes also opponent's high sustain can cause trouble, but about that case I will explain in the next section. Next we could think a bit of team combinations. In theory, all works with Tank Tryndamere, but especially those champs who can stay fighting longer than a few spells supports him the best. Also hard CC owning champs help him a lot. I think it's obvious to mention that Tank Tryndamere can do well when your team is behind and don't do well. In my own games, I have noticed this couple of times. Even if you manage to win your own lane, but others don't, the game will most likely fall to enemy's victory. Let's check out a little bit common items, what makes Tank Tryndamere a threatening tank. First, we want to get Bami's Cinder, basic boots, and a cloth armor. After that, Sunfire Cape, Titanic Hydra, and Mercury Treats. Depending on the enemy team's damage type, we choose either Ninja Tabis or Mercury Treats. Sunfire Cape first, because it gives nice amount of HP and armor for Tryndamere with burning AoE aura. It's nice to deal damage while farming, don't you think? After upgrading boots, you can usually get Phantom Dancer to give you a 12% damage reduction effect and some attack speed with crit for better trading. Hydra next, so we can get more power for basic attacks with AoE and some HP to become more tanky. Hydra's active effect isn't bad either. Next you have to think, do you need more armor or magic resist? If armor, Deadman's Blade is basic choice unless enemies happen to have some crit power or a lot of auto attackers. In that situation, you should go for Random's Omen or even for Tormail. If you need more magic resist, your call will be Spirit Visage. It boosts your skew's healing by 25% and gives many other useful stats, like CDR, HP, HP regen, and magic resist. The last item depends on the situation, where we have plenty of options, all the way from Warmock's Armor to Mortal Reminder. Warmock's Armor if you want to be even tougher meat wall. Frozen Mallet if you want to stick close to your target. Maw of Mormortius for trying combining an offense and a magic shield. Zeroed Portal if you want to put some pressure on one lane while moving elsewhere with your team. Sterk's Cage for gaining a life-saving shield and some AD with HP. Mortal Reminder if your opponents have one or more high sustain champs like Nasus, Eloy, Vladimir, or a marksman with Bloodthirster and Warlord Keystone. Guardian's Angel for playing truly immortal. Which items should you rush if you have to? Basically, it depends on each situation. If you're against sustain-based champ, you should definitely go first for Executor's Calling, so you can halve your opponent's sustain. In other cases, where you are in thin ice against strong AD champs, like Garen or Darius for example, Cloud Armor and basic Ruby Crystal are good choices. If you are struggling against AP champs, go for Spectre's Cowl. In runes, I have used now 9 crit chance marks, 9 flat armor seals, 9 scaling magic resist glyphs, 2 flat AD and 1 attack speed quintessences. There are indeed many options for each play style, and these were good in my games. Crit chance marks because as a tank you would naturally do as much damage as classic Tryndamere would do, so with these you can crit a bit more often and do more damage that way. If wanted, you can change these runes for flat AD or armor penetration. Flat armor seals are basic stuff, so I assume I don't need to explain them. Glyphs have the same reason. Then, about quintessences. Flat AD is good to have for all AD champs, tank or not, and Tryndamere's Calling is of course a basic attacker, so he needs to have some attack speed at least as a tank as well. Masteries goes like these. Crash of the Undying, because it heals the more HP you totally have, and as a tank, you will naturally have HP a lot. Bandit so you can get gold faster at the same time you farm and trade with your opponent. After all, Tryndamere needs gold as much as possible and fast in early game, so he can get his tank items as soon as possible and show the power of tank. Abilities leveling order goes as E at level 1, Q, W, E, and ult every time you can. E is a good start at level 1 because you can challenge your opponent before level 2 when the chance comes and could do surprise burst on last moment. Q ranks first because AD boost and healing. Q's passive effect gives more AD the more you have lost HP. W second, so you could trade easier and in early team fights gives more benefits for your team by lowering enemies AD in big AoE. Summoner spells usually have 2 choices as the strongest for Tryndamere, Teleport or Ignite with Ghost. Teleport, or TP for short, is classic choice when you want to be at the right place at the right time as often as possible. Ignite, in the other hand, is the best pick for you who want to have killing pressure. It is also useful in teamfights if you don't have Executor's Calling to reduce enemy sustain. So both of these are good choices, but in the end, it depends on your own play style which one you should take. Ghost is always good choice for Tryndamere because flash won't be always enough for all situations. You are after all a melee champion who hates kiting and poking the most.
Are you serious?
With Ghost, you get at least 27% movement speed boost for 10 seconds, so chasing gets much easier for you than compared to mini teleport. Okay, so all this has been just my theories for now, so next I wanted to hear what other players think about Tank Tryndamere 2. Here are a few players' thoughts about it.
Alright, so what up guys, my name is Tompa. The good side in that build was that you can take a lot more damage than what you should not be able to do with a normal carry build, especially when you are tower dying the enemy. The healing in his skill let you tank a massive amount of damage, and also Tryndamere have a good engage and disengage, what are good benefits for tanks. In the other hand, the downside, what I was thinking, is that you can't really deal that amount of damage than what you would deal with a normal crit build. Scaling of healing in his Q works with the AP, not with the max health, so that's a big problem compared to some other tanks champs ultis like huge stuns or AoE damage. Also the ult won't sync so well with tank Tryndamere, Usually the ultimate let you deal a huge damage like few seconds before you will die, but because the ultimate won't get any longer while stacking tankiness, the few seconds just ping a tank isn't that good if it put against the normal damage dealer Tryndamere. After all, the tank Tryndamere is fun to play and has something fresh to bring in the Summoner's Rift. You can deal a good damage against the squishy targets, but you can be defeated if you don't play well your early game. You should play him when your team lack of tanks, or if you just want to try something new.
First thing I noticed in the tank build was the amazing sustain and the ability to tower dive even before level 6. The problem for me was the lack of damage that I was used to, and that made me do some stupid mistakes and not respecting the enemy enough. But after 5 games I was getting hang to the tanky style of playing, and that worked. Boy, it worked. And the Coots. Really high impact on the team fights because you can go to the backline and take care of the enemy carries and still have health. Quite easy to farm. If you fall behind, you have still high impacts on the game. Cons. Bit hard to get used to. The lack of damage is there. And I couldn't make it work without runes and masteries. It really didn't work at all. I personally like the more classic high risk, high reward, high damage Tryndamere build. And I think tank Tryndamere is really good and must try build. This build can really surprise the enemy top laners and players in all the way.
I can see it can work and has some potential, but personally I prefer classic to shot Tryndamere. Overall Tryndamere is a useless champion in my opinion, and I wouldn't play him even if I would get paid for it in my LO.
Okay, so here we actually heard few feedbacks and opinions about tank Tryndamere. Yes, they probably haven't just figured out how to play this tank Tryndamere version yet, which could explain a lot of complaining about the lack of damage, for example, and everything else. And you could also say that tank Tryndamere is actually a troll build. Kappa. But the truth is, it can work, and even the players said so, that it has the potential to work. But it has those few conditions to make it work. And those conditions mostly are simply just your team and a bit luck. And a good matchup. But hey, if you know anyone else playing tank Tryndamere as well, leave a comment below the video to let me know if there actually is another player like me. But enough of that discussion, and let's move on. Elo climbing is naturally different on every tier, and even Diamond player has said that tank Tryndamere works in this meta. Tank Tryndamere can't carry games alone, of course, because he's just a tank, but with the help of your team, you can. Personally, I have learned to like more tank version, because my playstyle is pretty aggressive and low HP owning champions don't fit for that. I still have always liked Tryndamere since Season 2, and during Season 3, I invented this tank version. Even though classic Tryndamere does deal more damage, it just doesn't work enough far with my hands because of my own mistakes. Classic version mainly split pushes one lane all the time and doesn't give a single duck for the rest of the game. Many don't know, especially in low elo, how to teamwork with classic Tryndamere since it's different compared to standard way. The tank version can support this team with classic way, so teamwork will be easier also in low elo that way, and games can be won easier. In many of my own games, I also have been surprised by the fact that I have done the most damage of my team, even though I was a tank. Here was everything what I have studied about tank Tryndamere so far, and hopefully this guide video inspired someone to try this idea as well. Good luck to rankeds, and see you all next time.
Let's be friends forever.
Coming soon to a field of justice near you.